Rockstar gifted us with some new Red Dead Redemption 2 gameplay footage today, and to call it ambitious, I think is the right word. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on gameranx, 10 new things you need to know about Red Dead Redemption 2. Number 10, the graphics in this game are amazing. Looking at what we're seeing so far, it's just amazing how far graphics have come. I don't even want to say that it's the best looking game I've ever seen, but there's little details that make me think that it is one of the most cared about games that has ever been made at this scale. Because you see all these little details like dirt on Arthur's clothes when he falls in the mud. The part with Arthur and Dutch in the snow, it's just, I don't even know where to start. We've seen the snow deformation before, but I feel like that's a little bit less concentrated and maybe a little bit less resource intense than if you were to do it in mud, because mud has to retain much more exact shapes to do something like that. And they did it in the mud too. But it's not just the deformation. The rain we see in the mud on the town roads, or Blackwater at night, which just looks like nothing else. It's amazing. It's so beautiful. The environments, the forests, how there's atmosphere, how they've utilized the god rays, so to speak. It's amazing. To go further on the graphics, some of the animation is just amazing. Even little details like the way they pull guns off of straps on their shoulders, or the hair animation of the horse tails. These things are so finely detailed for such a huge game. The scope of this game is looking like it's just massive, but having all this big attention to little details is just so encouraging. It makes me feel like the lessons of Breath of the Wild and Horizon Zero Dawn have clearly made it into people's heads. An open world isn't great unless it's dense and populated and detailed, and wow. Number 9, I think it makes sense after talking about the graphics to talk about how interactive the world is and all of the other people, animals, and everything else is. You have this interaction menu that is just absolutely awesome. You can greet them, intimidate them, you can point your gun at them and make them piss their pants. I don't know if the pissing of the pants is the actual mechanic. What I mean is you can scare them. I'm just using colorful language. But the interaction with, like, let's say hunting, where we're going to actually have to take more care of how we hunt, store, and use all of the items we procure out in the wilderness, from tools to the meat we find. In a lot of ways, it looks like they've gone beyond what we expect as far as a game. Number 8, this is a cool one, I think. Actual fistfights are back. Now, we have some degree of decent fistfighting in the Grand Theft Auto games, but what we've seen here is just really, it looks more like a real fistfight. Real looking. It's dirty, it's grimy and difficult looking. There's an element of chaos that you wouldn't expect to see in video game footage of a game that's not explicitly a chaotic fighting game. This has me particularly excited about the gameplay, because combat in this type of a game isn't the only thing you do, obviously, but I really like getting in bar fights in these types of games. I like messing with people. Yes, I save and basically screw over my in-game life and then load, to blow off some steam, but it's fun. Number 7, the Euphoria engine is back. What Euphoria is a technology for animating 3D characters. Now, the intent is to fully simulate a 3D character. It's not just the outside of the character that you're looking at with like a skeletal animation system and ragdoll physics applied to that. Euphoria actually simulates the body, muscles, and motor nervous system. It helps prevent a sort of limp look in our video game characters, because oftentimes when a character dies, they turn into kind of a dead, dummy looking, goofy, weightless but with weight thing. We actually did a video a couple years ago called How Do Ragdoll Physics Work in Video Games, and I think it's worth checking that out, because this is a step up from that. A lot of the flaws that we discuss in that video are addressed in the Euphoria character physics system, and that's something that's really cool if you care about realism in games. Now, I'm not a hardcore realism enthusiast, but I do like it when stuff doesn't just look goofy when it's not supposed to. Number 6, they've confirmed a desert environment. Now, this might not seem like news on account it's a cowboy game, and a lot of that is desert oriented, but you'd be surprised at how much we've seen of a more lush wilderness and towns and things like that. We really actually haven't seen desert stuff like cactuses, lizards, dead cow skulls. but we have now, and it's really detailed, just like everything else. What I think is particularly cool is that we're seeing that in the barren desert, they're even paying attention to the kind of life that is there. Like I said, with the lizards and the vultures flying around, there's just so much attention to detail that leads me to believe this is going to be one of the densest and yet strangely unpopulated by humans open worlds we've ever seen. Number 5, we have some sightings of some familiar characters. John Marston, Abigail Marston, and Jack Marston. As a child, we're pretty sure that you're looking at Jack Marston's childhood as he travels around in the outlaw camps with his family. I would say it depicts a much more happy time than we end up spending with him later. Red Dead Redemption is a kind of profoundly sad game, and all 3 of those characters being able to share kind of a happy moment, even though we know they probably had a lot of happy moments. I think we know them more through the lens of their tragedy, and it's nice to see. It's also interesting to know exactly how much of the backstory we might be treading through for Red Dead Redemption. We obviously know it's the past, but we obviously don't know exactly how that's going to play out. Also, Uncle is back in the mix. We spotted Uncle too, but I think we're kind of expecting to see a lot of those gang members. Number 4, we're seeing much more realistic horse maneuvers. Now, not horse manure. It sounded a little bit like that, so I wanted to clarify. But we're seeing a lot more movement that is in line with what you would really see from a horse, especially one that maybe isn't entirely tamed. But at the same time, we've also got footage of some more intense movement of tamed horses. Jake actually covered a bunch of the horse interaction stuff in the last video we did on Red Dead Redemption 2, but it bears repeating those maneuvers are likely intertwined with all of this sort of building a bond with your horse mechanics. In fact, you'll most likely really need to work on that bond if you want to do anything involving a sort of video game horse level of calmness. Because in reality, horses aren't really that calm. And while I don't really care a whole lot about horses personally, I do think it's cool that they're trying to more realistically simulate something that they don't really give a lot of depth to otherwise in games. Number 3, they tout the differences in unique characteristics regarding guns. They talk about how they're trying to accurately model guns, show us some footage of a reload and some recoil, and talk about how each weapon has unique characteristics regarding both reload and recoil. And the thing that struck me is this sounded like something you would say to promote a game like 20 years ago. If they're bringing up the differences between guns and their reloading and recoiling, that means there's probably a real difference as opposed to just some little timing changes. I'm interested to see what extent this is, because it's an announcement, but it doesn't really seem like a momentous one. It seems like you're saying, hey, each and every gun is different in this game, because that's never been done before. But Rockstar doesn't make that kind of an announcement, so it leads me to believe there's probably a bigger difference than we might think, and I'm really interested in exactly how far that goes. Number 2, there are kids in this game. I don't have a lot to say about that. I'm not going to make a long point about it, but they haven't really had kids in a Rockstar game other than maybe like a main character, and those kids aren't really old. They're kind of grown kids-ish, but they haven't really done that, except for Bully. Wonder how far that's gonna go. Just thinking out loud here. I hope we don't deal with a lot of kid deaths is what I'm saying. And finally, number 1, the Outlaw Camp. I just want to talk about how much I love the Outlaw Camp. We're talking about a massive open world with tons of things that you can just go off and do whenever you want. But we're also talking about a story, and the story, instead of giving you a bunch of arbitrary points to follow through on a map, is going to take your cast of characters on a journey from place to place as you get ran out of town. And I just think that's such a brilliant narrative device to keep characters interacting with each other and keep the story interesting. On top of that, they've said there's not going to be any checklist style missions like say in Mass Effect Andromeda or a lot of Ubisoft games, because they don't like to think of this as content. They view it as a world that you are taking part in, a story, a living, breathing thing, and there's not a whole lot of checklists in the Old West, so to speak. It just seems like such a good idea for the narrative to give you the freedom to explore the open world, but also give you an easier way of actually traversing the story. I love it. Are you looking forward to Red Dead Redemption 2 as much as we are? Has this stuff got you excited? Leave us a comment, let us know what you're thinking, and if you like this video, please click like. If you're not subscribed, now would be a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week, and the best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription. As always, we thank you very much for watching this video on Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter at Falcon the Hero. We'll see you next time, right here on GameRanx.